Hi guys, Veggie Gamer back, and we're here, guys. We're at the end of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Very, very interesting. We've got a lot of notes to get through. Some very interesting moments in these chapters, guys, that we will get into. They are chunkier chapters than the previous ones that we've covered as well, and so it's only 2 chapters in this, but this video will most probably be at least as long as the usual ones, and I might do like a summary of my thoughts about the book compared to the movie, and just in general favourite characters and all that sort of things afterwards. And also we will be covering the Harry Potter book club at the end as well. If you're new to these videos, guys, at the end of the reviews now, we go through some comments that I get on the Patreon, which you can sign up to with as little as you like. I should say there's no minimum pledge. And you can put in your thoughts or questions or opinions into there, and I'll read them out at the end of the video. But we'll be covering that at the end of this video, once we've covered the chapters themselves. But these chapters are really good. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that, guys. It's really, really excellent. Like I say, some very surprising things. Some things that the movie got spot on, and also some things which I do think the movie changed for good reason. And then just some things which are just very different. But we'll go into those soon enough. But yes, we're 1 book down now, guys, so we're going to be moving on to the Chamber of Secrets soon. I do hope to be able to speed up how fast I get you these videos in the future, guys, but thank you so much for your patience and sticking with me. I guess we will get straight on ahead, guys. I will just quickly say that I do plan on setting up a PO box soon, so in future, if there is anything that you want to send over to me, then you will have the opportunity to. But let's get on with Chapter 16. What I basically do is I give a summarization of the chapter, and then I go through my notes for the chapter. And so here is my summarization of Chapter 16 through the trapdoor. Exams come to an end at Hogwarts, and Ron and Hermione are looking forward to a relaxing week before the results come through. Harry, on the other hand, is still worried about Voldemort and the building pain coming from his scar. While trying to chill out, Harry suddenly gets a terrible thought. The group rush over to Hagrid, and Harry asks him about the stranger that gave him the dragon, Norbert. Hagrid explains after being brought several drinks, he told the person how to calm down. Okay, I've written down calm down funny with music. Fluffy with music. I apologise, guys, my dyslexia even affects what I write sometimes. But yes, it explains how music can be used to calm down Fluffy. The three try to warn Dumbledore, but McGonagall tells them that he has been called to London, the Ministry. Harry explains the danger the stone is in. The professor orders them to forget all about it. That night, Neville spots the three sneaking off and confronts them. After an argument, Hermione puts a spell on him, freezing his body, and it falls to the floor, which I do have a question about, which we'll get into in my notes. After being able to get around Mrs. Norris and Peeves, the group are able to pass by Fluffy by playing music using the flute Hagrid gave Harry for Christmas. I think it was Christmas. Being able to get past challenges set up by each Hogwarts professor, Ron is incapacitated and Hermione retreats to send Hedwig off to warn Dumbledore. Harry enters the final chamber. Obviously, we will go into each of those because we do have some additional puzzles for the group to get through, but that's just the summary. So, a lot happens in this chapter, guys. Almost in a way, I'm surprised that it wasn't broken into the build-up of them getting to the trapdoor, then having the challenges, and then having the final chamber in the final chapter of The Man with Two Heads, or Two Faces. But yes, here are my notes. So yeah, Harry is legitimately worried, guys. He even says right at the start of the chapter that he is, even in class, he's just waiting for Voldemort to come bursting into the room after him and everything. And so he's definitely a lot more stressed in the book than he appears in the movie. We get a little a few bits of information about the exams that they're actually going through, how they've been given special quirls, I should say, for the exams, which are anti-cheating, have an anti-cheating spell on them. They have to make pineapples dance for Flitwick, and McGonagall watches them turn a mouse into a snuff box, which I would have thought snuff box is a bit strong to have at school, right? I know it's not as bad as smoking or anything, but I believe the snuff box is, I believe that stuff was not great for people when they used to have them. I don't know. I have literally no idea about that sort of thing. So yes, Harry is still getting the headaches and the nightmares again, which would I swear that we didn't get any nightmares in the movie version of the Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone. I don't think so. Maybe we did. But it seems to be this recurring dream of Voldemort actually there. You see, this is my problem, guys, because it has been a while since I watched the first movie. I really need to do a refresher when doing these reviews. But these nightmares have been hitting Harry like pretty much the length of the book, or at least since he got to Hogwarts, which would make sense. But yeah, apparently at this time the nightmare has a hooded figure dripping with blood. Is lovely. We get more Professor Binns. Professor Binns' exam is like the last exam of the lot, and at the end of it, like all the students cheering and everything, which is wonderful. Lovely to hear more Professor Binns. Seriously, these characters which aren't in the movies at all, getting so much limelight, and obviously we've got Peeves later on in the chapter as well. We hear about a couple of things which Hermione says that she didn't need to research but did, but it turns out that the exams didn't cover the werewolf code of conduct and the uprising of Elfric the Eager. Now these are the sort of things, particularly Elfric the Eager, I really do hope that we'll at least get references to. Or maybe Elfric is like a main character in Hogwarts Legacy. I really hope that those sort of little tidbits are really taken in, because I do think that I mean, we know that Professor Binns, what appears to be Professor Binns and what appears to be Peeves, are going to be in Legacy, and so it does seem like they are going to be more, maybe not more focused on the books than the movies, but taking both the books and the movies into account whilst writing, like, creating the world around them. So you never know, Elfric the Eager may be on it. We shall find out, guys. We shall find out. So yes, when Harry, Hermione, and Ron are trying to relax after the exams, it says that Fred and George and Lee Jordan were tickling the tentacles of a giant squid. Now I can't imagine that, guys. That's the sort of thing which would look so weird in the first movie if it was in there. I do think that I got one comment on my Philosopher's Stone movie reaction saying, "Hey, did you notice the squid at this point?" I gotta say, guys, I don't know if that person's misremembering it, or maybe they're trying to trick me or anything. I certainly don't remember there being a squid when like they're rowing the boats towards Hogwarts at the start, near the start. But we do get mention here of a giant squid, and so that sort of thing I could understand not being in the movie, because it just would have taken the focus off what was going on, quite frankly, because that is such a strange image, the fact that they're tickling the tentacles of this giant squid. Oh, by the way, I have started my Lord of the Rings reaction now, guys. That giant squid on Fellowship of the Rings really freaked me out. Right. So we get a kind of unpleasant line about Neville. I think it's Ron who says, Neville will be playing Quidditch for England before Hagrid lets Dumbledore down. Which, Hagrid unintentionally lets a lot of people down, but yeah, that's a bit of a mean comment about Neville. We'll get into Neville actually in a bit, guys, because I do feel like the scene where he confronts them is a bit meaner in the books. It kind of is. And also, I got a question about the spell that Hermione puts on him. It really is making it a lot more clearer. I mean, again, this is probably something which is in the movie, but nowhere near to the extent where they are absolutely 100% definite that Snape is the one who's doing it. And it keeps on saying, hey, Snape's going to do this, Snape's going to do that. I'm sure there was that to an extent in the movie, but it seems so much more thickly layered on in the books. It really is. It's almost every other sentence at this point, saying about how Snape is definitely the one that we're trying to stop and so on. I did get a little bit confused now, because it doesn't explain how much time has passed between the chapters at this point in the book. I think early on it'd like say after Harry's first week doing this, and so it was very, very easy to keep passage of time. By this point, I don't know if it's been months since the last chapter, or weeks, or the next day. So yeah, I question how long it has been since Norbert has been sent away to Romania. Because I was completely baffled when Harry said, okay, Snape's going to try and get the stone tonight. I was like, well, how do you know that? It completely threw me off until I was doing my second notes. Because I listened to the Jim Dale and then the Stephen Fry version of it. And only then did I realise that the reason why Harry thinks it's going to be tonight is because Dumbledore has been sent off to London. Presumably on false pretenses, which it turned out it was. And so when... I feel like even in the movie, I was like, well, how do they know it's tonight? But that would actually explain it, though. That is something which I just completely missed when watching the movies and reading the book for the first time. It was only on the second listening to the audiobook that I actually realised that that was probably the reason why Harry says it's going to be tonight, opposed to any other night before. So yes, we get the three explaining their case to McGonagall, because McGonagall says how Dumbledore isn't there, and she just tells him to to forget about it and to not be seen in the areas again, or she's going to take even more points away from Gryffindor. You see, this is because I've been listening to Jim Dale's version. It's Gryffindor, which is fine. I think even Fry made say Gryffindor as well. We get a great bit where they suggest that Hermione goes and keeps an eye on Snape while they go and check on the third floor corridor to make sure he's not there, just for Hermione to go and find out where else he could be and everything. And Ron does an impression of Hermione, which is amazing. It's great hearing Jim Dale and Stephen Fry do this impression of Ron doing an impression of Hermione, and Hermione's just like, shut up to Ron. It's absolutely glorious. And yes, Harry and Ron go off to the third floor corridor, but McGonagall, I think it's the third floor corridor, and then McGonagall spies them and says, I will have to take points off my own house if I see you here again today. So this is it again, guys. I really do need to refresh myself with the movies before doing the next ones, guys, because there is a great bit here in the book, and I certainly don't remember it being in the movie, where I'm pretty sure it's Hermione's saying, Harry, if you get caught again, then you're going to get expelled, and Harry's like, it doesn't matter if I get expelled. What difference is it going to make if I get expelled? I'm going to go home and then Voldemort will find me there instead of here and stuff like that. It's a really good scene of him basically saying everything won't matter anymore if Voldemort is able to be brought back. And it's a great speech. And like I say, maybe it's in the movie to an extent, but it definitely stood out to me as being a real great moment for Harry in the book. It's like the first moment where he's like, to hell with Gryffindor, to hell with me being able to stay in this world, but to hell with being able to get away from living with Vernon and the family. All of that's redundant if Voldemort comes back, and he says about how how he killed his parents and everything. Loved this moment. I'm sure it probably is in the movie, but it definitely didn't stand out to me as being as good as this. Maybe it's not in the movie. Again, I need to be refreshing myself with the movies while I do these. So now we spin around to night time. We have the scene with Neville, which is pretty similar. It is pretty similar. Harry pockets the flutes that Hagrid gave him for Christmas, which is obviously not something which is in the movie, which I can kind of understand why. We'll get to that when we get to that. But the Neville scene, I don't know if it may be just the way that Fry and Dale were reading it, but it definitely seems meaner. Harry and Ron are really mocking Neville, which is something... Harry doesn't mock anyone at all in the movie. He's too clean-cut in the movie, guys. And I think it's because they just really want to make him the ultimate, just good guy, butter won't melt, absolute, never says anything mean, never nasty character. Whilst in the book, he's so much more realistic. And we'll get to bits... in these last chapters, let alone the last line of the book, But other moments where he's still... he I don't want to say he's petty. What I'm saying is he is as petty as any other 11-year-old boy. Which is something that does not come across in the movies. I'm not saying that he's more petty than any other 11-year-old boy. What I'm saying is he's not any less petty than any 11-year-old boy. And that to me is so refreshing. I definitely prefer Harry's character in the book because it's more relatable, more realistic. He has his own faults, personality faults. Like I say, the last line of the book, which is similar to something that's said in the movie, but it's definitely different. And obviously the Dumbledore's undoing of the House Cup that we will get to. But yes. So yeah, that alongside the speech that we just had from Harry is about saying he doesn't care if he gets expelled. And then this scene where he's a lot more patronising to Neville than he is in the book, I really do think adds so much to his character. I do feel even more sorry for Neville in the book. I feel like in the movie... Oh, I don't know if I want to say this, guys, but... I don't want to say that they make Neville out to be a complete buffoon. But this scene, to me, in the book, he didn't seem as comic-like as he was in the scene in the movie. And I do feel more sorry for him. So yeah, I felt like in the book it seemed a little bit meaner, but that's not to say it's worse. It really isn't to suggest it's any worse. So Hermione puts the spell onto Neville, and Harry says to her, "Do something" or something like that. Again, very different from the movie. And Hermione freezes him, and he falls. He actually falls on his face. So on the movie, I'm pretty certain he falls back on it. I swear to God, he falls on the back of his skull. In the movie, because I think I actually remark upon that. Whereas in this, it specifically says he falls on his face, and Hermione actually turns him over. I don't think that she was expecting him to fall forward rather than falling back. Now, my question about this is the same spell that Draco uses on Harry in Half-Blood Prince, right? If it isn't, I apologise, but from what I gather, it is the same spell. Now, there is this moment, which I am now very interested to find out if it's in the book or not, where Draco freezes Harry, and then he boots him in the face as punishment, and then when Luna... Yeah, it was Luna. When Luna unfreezes him, then the damage is done. Would that suggest that when Hermione did the spell on Neville, and Neville falls flat on his face... that he's going to have, that sheer, undefended impact to the face as soon as he's unfrozen? I don't know, guys. It may not be the same spell, but I'd like to know the consistency of that. Because maybe that whole scene where Draco kicks Harry in the face, maybe it's not even in the books, but I'll be interested to hear how exactly that spell works. Or maybe none of it matters at all, but that was something which I only thought upon because I've watched all the movies and are now revisiting these scenes in the books. I was thinking, well, hang on, that's slightly different than what would have happened with Draco doing the spell in Half-Blood Prince. Either way. So we have the return of Peeves, guys, the main character in the books, apparently, because he's in it so much more. Well, so much more. He's in it. What I mean is that he's in almost every single chapter in Hogwarts. And yeah, he's loosening up the carpet to try and trip people over, which is pretty messed up. I hope he's not doing it near any stairs. And we had this bizarre moment, guys. It's a hilarious moment where Harry does an impression of the Bloody Baron. And as I remember, Jim Dale's and Stephen Fry's impressions are very different. Telling Peeves that he's in trouble and to leave him alone and everything. I wonder if the Bloody Baron talks at all, guys. So I know that he sat at the table with Slytherin, much to Draco's dismay, as I remember. Draco was freaked out by him. But I wonder if he really speaks, though, because for Harry to be able to do an impression of him... I mean, what I'm saying is maybe he doesn't speak normally, and Harry doing an impression Peeves didn't think about the fact that the Bloody Baron doesn't speak, and just assumed that voice that he was hearing must have been the Bloody Baron, or maybe Harry's just really good at impressions. Either way, it's a great scene, guys. We got Ron doing an impression of Hermione. We got Harry doing an impression of the Bloody Baron. It's amazing. And Peeves refers to the Bloody Baron as Sir as well, which is very interesting. I do wonder if it's just because he is scared, because we know that Peeves is scared of the Bloody Baron. That's been remarked upon in the previous chapter. But if there is this hierarchy of him almost being working underneath him or something, I'm not sure, guys. I don't think we've ever heard what house Peeves... No, because Peeves is a poltergeist. As you guys have pointed out, guys, Peeves is as supernatural as like a vampire or something like that. They were never alive. They exist as a poltergeist. It's not like someone died and turned into a poltergeist. They exist as a poltergeist. I believe that's correct. And so he wouldn't have had a house unless they ever had ghost students. That's a very good question. Why wouldn't they have ghost students if ghosts... The existence of ghosts at Hogwarts still baffles me, guys. It really does. Do you have to have died? What are the rules for someone being a ghost at Hogwarts? Do you have to have died at Hogwarts? I don't think you had to have been from any particular famous lineage or have any particular success in life, because Moaning Myrtle is a ghost here. So yeah, that still does baffle me. Why wouldn't Myrtle still go to classes? Or is it the case that when you're a ghost, it's like, it doesn't matter anymore? That's a strange old question that I just asked, guys. But if Professor Binns can go on to be a professor at Hogwarts, I wonder what he gets paid in. Maybe his descendants get paid. That's a very interesting question. I'd love to hear the theory behind that. But yeah. I don't know, guys. I've gone on such a tangent there. But why wouldn't Myrtle still go to classes until... I mean, no, her years would have been up decades before Harry got there, weren't he? So that's kind of redundant. Yeah, I don't know. That's a strange sidetrack I just went down there, guys. But yes, ghosts still really do intrigue me. But Peeves is technically not a ghost, as either the Gryffindor ghost or the Hufflepuff ghost said. So Nicholas or the Friar. There we go. Remembered it in the end. So yeah, Harry makes Fluffy fall asleep again. So this is obviously very different than in the movie. They turn up and Fluffy is already asleep and there is a harp magically playing in the background. In this, they turn up and there's a harp on the ground next to Fluffy and Fluffy's awake again. And so I thought that Hagrid said in the movie that you need to play a specific type of, a specific piece of music. Now, obviously, either I heard that wrong or they changed that for the movie, because Harry just starts playing a random tune and Fluffy instantly falls to sleep. That's a pretty easy way of getting around him. But then again, you're not really going to think about it when trying to get past a three-headed dog, are you? Play some music. And so yeah, Harry starts playing it, and they are able to scope out what's going on. Then they give to Hermione. Hermione's actually the last one to jump down the hole. But we don't have this moment of them looking over the hole and then Fluffy like coming up behind them and drooling on them and everything. That did seem like such a movie scene. Even to the point where when we were coming up to it in the books, I was like, is that going to be in there? Because it seems very, very Hollywood, that whole scene. And so it's very, very different. They're never in any immediate danger. Because as soon as they start playing the music, Fluffy falls asleep. And as soon as Hermione drops down, she stops playing it and Fluffy wakes back up again. Very, very different, guys. And the book version... I don't know, I feel like the movie version did an alright job at making it more Hollywood, I guess. But yes, the way that they got around it is very different in the book. And like I say, I thought that Hagrid specifically said, play him a tune of music. I can't remember the wording that he says, but I always assumed even up to this point until reading the books, that it was a specific tune that you had to play for Fluffy, rather than just music in general. And so that's why the harp kind of makes sense if the harp has been made to play this specific tune. Whereas if it's not a specific tune, there's no real reason why Snape or whoever could be down there wouldn't have taken the harp with him. I don't know. Very different, but I don't hate the movie version, guys, but it certainly is more Hollywood. So yeah, the movie scene was very clearly added for action. Yeah, my notes here go into this a specific. Even when I was making my notes, I was saying, well, no, wasn't it a specific tune? I don't know, guys. Again, I need to listen back to the movie, but maybe it was never said that it had to be a specific tune. Maybe it's just music. And so I actually have a note down here saying, well, isn't it a little bit irresponsible of Hagrid to give Harry the flutes? Well, no, because it's, you know, if it's not like a tune which he's been taught to play, then obviously that's not bad about Hagrid giving him the flute at all. So there's a lot more discussion about the devil's snare, and this guy's Harry falls down. He's like, "Oh, what's this stuff?" And then Ron comes down. It's like, "Oh, this is weird." And then Hermione comes down. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And immediately gets over and runs off, runs off it, I should say, which is amazing. But yeah, we have Harry and Ron just really casually saying, "Oh, this is some interesting stuff here, isn't it?" While laying in the devil's snare. There's no mention about it tightening up faster when you struggle, which I swear is something that Hermione specifically says, that you need to calm down. In fact, Harry gets past it. Oh, you see, Harry gets past it just by calming down, doesn't he? This scene is very different, guys, and I can kind of see why. We really need to get to a future scene to really explain why I feel like this scene was changed. But Harry gets past the devil's snare, because Hermione gets caught by it as well, doesn't she? But they just like chill out and they basically like drop out and are fine. Whereas in the book, the only way of getting rid of this devil's snare is with fire, which Hermione is required, which Hermione is needed. She needs a lot of help to come to that conclusion. In fact, when Ron, I think like Harry like says, you need to use fire, because Hermione remembers what the textbook says, and Harry essentially says that's fire, and she like says, well, I don't have any. There's no wood, and Ron's like, have you forgotten that you're a witch? Essentially, so Hermione here is a lot more scatterbrained. I think the change in the movie, because when I first heard this, I was like, oh wow, they really changed Hermione's character. Because my biggest takeaway from doing these book reviews so far, guys, is Hermione is so different, and I do prefer her in the books. I got to admit it, guys. And when I was in this point, I was like, this is so adorable. It does make Hermione seem more scatterbrained, but it definitely gives more of her personality, and she is the one who is saving Ron and Harry here. That being said, because we don't have a scene which is coming up in the future, which for time or whatever reason that they didn't have two of the challenges that we're coming up to, Hermione needed her moment to shine, and so that's why she's a lot more in control, knows what to do, tells them what to do, and then gets them out there with the flame. I think that's the reason, because we lose, I may as well say it, the potion challenge that's coming up, because that's not there, Hermione doesn't have her moment to shine, and so they chose it to be here instead, which does make sense, guys. It's all herbology and stuff like that. It's actually Sprout's challenge, which is actually nice. There's one really nice bit, actually, once they get past the chess scene, where they say, okay, so Sprout's challenge was Devil's Snare, Flitwick's was the Flying Keys, McGonagall's was the chess, because of the spells that she would have had to use on the pieces to make it happen. That was really nice. I feel like that could have been a really nice addition in the movie, because obviously Flitwick, I mean, Sprout isn't in the first movie at all. Flitwick is barely in the first movie, and I do feel like throughout the entire series that Flitwick is possibly the one who really should have had more dialogue about him, and that would have been nice to say. Oh, maybe it does say that in the keys scene, but because quite frankly I barely remember the keys scene, but I like the fact that it said, this is this professor's, this is this professor's. Down to the point where they're just left with Quirrell and Snape. And I guess Dumbledore's is the final chamber. You would imagine. So yes, yeah, we have the chamber with the winged keys and everything. This is, as I remember, very, very similar to how it was before. We then get to the chess scene where the chess pieces have no faces, which the three notably find creepy. Whereas in the movie, I'm pretty certain every single chess piece has a big metal helmet on. In the book, the three actually are like taken aback by how creepy that these figures with no faces are. So that's obviously very, very different. I kind of love the sound of the one in the book, but I know that the one in the movie looks amazing as well. And I know that there is that chest that you can buy of it and everything. But I just love the idea of all these, like, you know, really nicely cut pieces without helmets on, but they all have just smooth faces. That does sound very creepy. In fact, it really, really does. Yeah, so the whole chess scene is done a lot less dramatic. Like, a lot less dramatic. It's all like, Ron's like, okay, you go over there, Hermione, I'll be a knight. And it's just like, we hear about how Ron, like, barely noticed sometimes when Hermione or Ron or Harry were going to get knocked out and everything. But you don't have this whole dramatic music and everything and the build-up and everything. Like the ultimate where the Queen, like, turns around to Ron and is, like, really slowly moving towards him and everything. Nothing like that in the book. It's basically saying, Ron saying, I'm going to get taken, then you can take the king. And we have that great speech by Ron again. But yeah, in the movie, it's like, and then he says his piece, moves his piece, and then Queen knocks him. It's a lot faster, a lot less dramatic. The pieces are a lot more animated as well, where, like, you know, the king piece that Harry takes his crown off and puts it at Harry's feet, I think, and I think it's the Queen actually carries Ron off after getting knocked down. So it's like the pieces. In fact, Ron actually talks to the black chess pieces and like says, "Oh, is this what we're meant to do?" And they like nod to him and everything like that. So a lot more animated. Weirdly, because the lack of animation in the movie, I think, is one of the reasons why that scene is creepy. But then you have but them having no faces would have been a lot more creepy in my opinion. But them being so much more animated, I don't know. I guess that is slightly less creepy than in the movie. I don't know, guys. Either way, it's great. In both of them, that scene is done brilliantly. We do get one very... this kind of blows my mind, guys. Harry and Hermione basically leave Ron for dead, right? I guess that they're assuming that Ron's okay. They are both very, very worried. I do think that it does say that they are really worried about Ron. Although I will point out that, you know, should I say it now? Okay. There's something that Harry doesn't ask about in the last chapter, guys, and so we'll get that. We'll get there when we get there. But yes, Ron is just like left there. Hermione goes with Harry at this point, and that's because there's still 2 more rooms to go. We get into the next room, which turns out to be Quirrell's one, where there is this troll. I don't know if it's meant to be the same troll. You presume not, but a different troll, basically knocked out, already dealt with. Again, if you're going to lose a couple of chambers from the book in the movie, it completely makes sense that it's the troll one, because we've already seen the troll. We can't have that. It would certainly lose its dramatic moment second time round. Obviously, with the troll already being out and everything, but I can completely understand why that was cut. And then we have Snape's final trial, which is... It sounds awesome, but again... If you're going to lose a couple of rooms for time, it kind of makes sense that you lose this one and give Hermione her big moment in Professor Sprout's chamber instead. So yes, as you know, guys, it's like a table with, I think it's a circle of potions on. And there's this long riddle, which I was at first trying to, like, you know, try to work out, but I thought, no, there's no point. There's no point in me trying to work this out. I'd have to get a pen and paper out and everything. It sounds awesome, though. It really is a very, very difficult riddle. And Hermione is actually seeming really up for it. Like, once riddles over, she's like, oh great, okay, I'll work this out. And this is her big moment to shine, like I say, because the Sprout challenge was so different. And she says how this isn't magic, this is logic. That we just need to work here. And this is interesting, guys, because potions, I have speculated, I think during my movie reactions, how potions aren't magic. Now, you guys corrected me, they are magic. They are about putting ingredients all together, but it's how you do those and requiring magic to be able to do that. That being said, potions is still the most logical of the lessons that are taught at Hogwarts. And so we had this moment where Hermione's like saying, we just need to use logic and everything and take it, you know, step by step. So yeah, I thought that was awesome. It was great to have Hermione really own this scene without having to detract from anyone else's, because obviously in the Devil's Snare she's like really mocking. She's not. She gives Ron a massive face of disgust when he's panicking, and she's like, as she like sinks through and everything, which is so different from in the books. But her character, I should say. But this was like a really good moment for the book Hermione to really get her moment. And there is a potion to go through the black flames that are in front, or the purple. I think the purple flames are behind and the black flames are in front. I could be wrong. And there's a potion for them to go either way. And Harry at that point says to Hermione that you head back, check on Ron, and send off Hedwig to go and warn Dumbledore. I would question why he wouldn't have sent Hedwig off already, but maybe he was worried about getting caught on the way to the Owlery to do that. Yeah, I mean, that's not a big deal either way. But this is how we get Harry on his own, leading into the final chamber, guys. And it's very creepy. I can't remember how it says it, but it like says how Harry opened the last door, but he sees someone there, but it wasn't Voldemort or Snape. That's how the last chapter's left, and then we go into the next chapter. So this was an awesome chapter, guys. I do think that it could have been potentially chopped into two, but it was awesome. It really kept me engaged. The fact that there are these, well, I mean, if you include Fluffy, 6 challenges in this chapter, and none of them seemed to drag. They all kept a real good pace, and the fact that they all had completely different ways of solving them, it was really awesome. And like I say, when I was first reading the Devil's Snare scene, I was like, oh, why wasn't this kept in like this? But if you're going to lose the chemistry scene, you got to give Hermione her moment. So that change, I'm absolutely for. Believe me, guys, and I think I've said it before. Oh, I don't want to say that. Okay. No, I am. Okay, I can say this. I prefer Hermione in the Philosopher's Stone in the book than I do in the movie. Please let me know your thoughts on there. Let's move on to the final chapter, guys. The man with 2 heads. It can't be heads. Is it heads? Is that the start of this? I said faces, and then oh no, hang on. I just need to look up which one it is. Bear with me, guys. Yo, talk amongst yourselves for a second. The man with 2 faces. Okay, now I'm really confused. The man with 2 faces. Chapter 17. The man with 2 faces. Here we go then. Chapter 17, The Man with 2 Heads. Harry is shocked to find Quirrell in the final chapter. He corrects Harry's misunderstandings of Snape and who was really trying to steal the stone. He snaps his fingers and ropes grab Harry. Quirrell frustratingly examines the mirror, and as the mirror Harry had visited earlier in the year. When Quirrell asks his master for help, a voice calls out saying, "Use the boy." Harry is ordered in front of the mirror and sees himself smiling back, putting his hand in his pocket, revealing the stone. When it returns the stone to the pocket, Harry felt it appear inside his. The voice orders Quirrell to allow it to speak to Harry face to face. Quirrell removes the turban to reveal a terrible face on the back of his head. That's why I got a bit confused about it. It's called 2 heads around the 2 faces, but it doesn't matter. Voldemort orders Harry to give him the stone, and as Harry goes to run, Quirrell leaps on him. Harry is surprised to see Quirrell cowering back with blisters covering his hands. Quirrell attempts a deadly curse, but Harry grabs him by the arm as the pain seems to burn into him. Harry hears other voices call out to him as he passes out. Very interesting. He awakens to see Dumbledore looking over him in the hospital wing. Dumbledore gives Harry an explanation of what happened. I'm so sorry that this summarization is a bit short, but there's a lot of context which we will go into in the points. But yes, he explains to Harry what happened and why Voldemort and Quirrell were not able to touch him. He tells Harry that the stone has been destroyed and that he was the one who rescued Harry from Quirrell. Ron and Hermione get a chance to visit, as well as Hagrid the next day, who blames himself for everything that happened. The end-of-year feast is that evening in the Great Hall, and the Great Hall is covered by slithering colours. Dumbledore arrives to give some extra house points before the meal. He gives Harry, Hermione and Ron points that bring Gryffindor up to equal with Slytherin, and then Neville a further 10 points, giving them the win. After they receive their exam results, term comes to an end and the students return to platform 9 3/4. Hermione is taken aback by how rude Vernon seems to be towards Molly, which is bizarre. I can't even imagine that scene, but yeah. But Harry smiles and says how Muggle families don't know about the ban on magic and that he's going to be having a lot of fun with Dudley this summer. So I'm sorry about that summarization, guys, but there's a lot of exposition and explaining in this chapter. With Quirrell and Harry, it's a lot of, you know, that whole Bond villain sort of, this is my plan, you know, that I'll say. And then with Dumbledore, with Harry, it's a lot of explaining, filling in the holes of what, you know, where Harry was going wrong and everything like that. It's brilliantly written, guys. That's not a criticism at all. But when you're writing a summary, it's quite difficult to cover all the bases, and so that's why he basically said Dumbledore explained what happened, which is, yeah. I'm glad that they didn't do that in the book because that would have been a little bit slapdash. But yes, I mean, this is great, guys. I gotta say, largely, the movie gets it bang on. There are certainly some changes, and that ending is obviously very different. The fact that Molly and Vernon have like a very short conversation is bizarre. But yes, let's get into my notes. So as Quirrell is telling Harry of the fiendish plan and really correcting Harry, and this was the case in the movie as well, where Harry is like, but I thought Snape was doing all this. Quirrell basically gives him the lowdown, explains that what the real situation was, and refers to Snape as an overgrown bat, which is amazing. Can't imagine Quirrell doing that, but that's absolutely amazing. I mean, this is the thing. This is the real Quirrell that we're seeing at this point. Even in the movie, he, like, you know, he puts his stutter on, and so on. So this is the real Quirrell. The fact that he refers to Snape as an overgrown bat, which I'm sure isn't in the movie. Maybe it is. Maybe it is, guys. What was definitely not in the movie was Quirrell explaining why Snape was the referee in that match against Hufflepuff, where Gryffindor cheated. That Snape was there to protect Harry, which is so... I didn't give that a second's thought when going through the book, guys, and this is from someone who knows the story all the way up into the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I didn't think for a second that was the reason why Snape was actually in there. And apparently the other professors are all annoyed at him because they even assumed that was the real reason why he was doing it. But yeah, that was very different. So yeah, Quirrell uses like a spell to make ropes latch on to Harry, which obviously isn't something that's in the movie. It did remind me of a scene in Deathly Hallows Part 2, where it's during a big fight at the end, which I know apparently is very different from in the books, which I look forward to checking out when we're able to get there. Where Voldemort uses his cloak to like grab hold of Harry, like, you know, on his neck and his arms and everything. That kind of like made me think of that. But no, in this he actually restrained Harry, which in the movie he didn't restrain him at all. I don't think he certainly didn't. And we hear what Quirrell actually sees in the mirror, which is very interesting. He actually sees, Quirrell sees himself handing the Philosopher's Stone to Voldemort, and Quirrell's like really frustrated, like trying to work out how to get the stone out and everything. He even speculates maybe smashing it open and everything like that. We hear James getting mentioned. We actually hear about James's relationship with Snape, which is so bizarre to hear it this early on, how James and Snape hated each other. And we get even more of it later on in the chapter. But yeah, Snape is like explaining how... I can't remember exactly if he's saying it's ironic or something, but he's saying how Snape hated James and James hated him as well. Hearing about James this early is so bizarre, guys. And I guess to people reading the book without the movie, they're thinking, well, James is obviously the good guy and Snape is the bad guy in this situation. But yeah, we do hear more about it, which I have no idea what it's about. There's obviously so much more in the books about James and Snape, and that is actually one of the things which I'm looking forward to the most about learning. But yeah, hearing James being mentioned by Quirrell is just bizarre, it really is. So we find out, I presume, that when Quirrell went to Gringotts to try and break into Gringotts in a Diagon Alley, he was unsuccessful. And as a punishment, Voldemort, he says that Voldemort punished him, and how Voldemort now wanted to keep an eye on what he's doing more. And from what I gather, that means that he got put on the back of Quirrell's head, and so up to that point he wasn't there. Now, in the movie, I am 99% sure that Quirrell had the turban on when he's inside the leaky cauldron. But in the book, I think I even mentioned it in my review, how it didn't actually specifically say that he was wearing the turban in that scene. And then when we get to the Great Hall in the sorting hat ceremony, the first thing that Harry notices is the strange turban that Quirrell is wearing. So that's obviously happened in between. So I don't know exactly what state Voldemort was at the start of the Philosopher's Stone, but it was not on the back of Quirrell's head, which is obviously different in the movie, where Quirrell is already wearing the turban covering up Voldemort. So that's very interesting. Yeah, it doesn't say what sort of state. I mean, it does say that Voldemort needs someone else to allow him to share his body. Share their body, I should say. But I don't know if that means that maybe it was in a different position or something like that, but that's so... Yeah. If I missed that there, then I apologise, but I presume that he was not actually on Quirrell's body until Quirrell unsuccessfully was not able to steal from Gringotts. And so then Voldemort put himself on the back of the head, meaning that Quirrell had to start wearing this purple turban all the time, which is why Harry found it so strange when he saw him in the Great Hall. So that's very different from in the movies, guys. I guess if you are going to try and speed up the story a bit, it does make sense that you do that the way that it did in the movies, where presumably Voldemort is just already on the back of his head before even going into the into Gringotts. But that really doesn't change that much, though, and so that's a fine change. That's a fine change. So yeah, the mirror scene is pretty damn accurate, guys. With, like, you know, taking the stone out of his pocket, putting it back in, and appearing inside Harry's pocket. The movie did a really great job on that. We hear that when Voldemort is talking to Harry, Quirrell is walking backwards. Now I'm pretty certain that he didn't walk backwards. I know he leaps at Harry, but I don't even think that was backwards. I'm pretty sure that when Voldemort is talking with Harry, Quirrell is just stationary, whereas in the book, he's like walking backwards, which would look really freaking creepy. Again, I don't think it was in the movie, but it has been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, even just the description of that sounded kind of terrifying. Talking about description, guys, Voldemort does appear to sound... It sounds like he looks quite different than he is in the book. In the movie, I should say, sorry. Because in the book, apparently, he's got a completely white face with red eyes. Now, I've looked up, guys, and I'm pretty sure that that at no point does Voldemort have red eyes in this series at all. But the completely white skin, sure, he looks drained in that scene, but not completely white, though. And so I think that they changed it up quite a bit. Maybe they already had plans on what they wanted Voldemort to look like in the future, and so wanted to make that quite similar to that. But yeah, that description of Voldemort was Voldemort's face is definitely a creepy one. So we get a lot of dialogue from Voldemort here. I'm pretty certain it's more than we get in the movie. saying about how he killed his parents, how he killed James first, and how he put up a good fight and all this sort of stuff and everything like that. And again, when Harry goes to run, Quirrell like grabs him. I don't think it certainly isn't as dramatic because in the movie they're like surrounded by flames and like Quirrell like freaking flies at him and everything. And in the book, I think he just tackles Harry to the ground and everything, which is fine. And yeah, instantly he starts getting these blisters on his hands, which is very different than in the movie, guys. I don't know which one's worse. The thing is that it appears that Quirrell dies, going on what Dumbledore says, unless he is saved by Dumbledore, because Dumbledore has to get Quirrell off of Harry. But Harry was grabbing him though. It's very interesting. I feel like I may have got the wrong end of the stick there. But yes, but here Harry grabs hold of Quirrell's arm rather than his face. Because the face is extreme, guys. That scene in the movie must have been very scary for children who were seeing that for the first time. Boils on the hands and everything would have been pretty disgusting as well. But honestly, I don't know which one's worse, actually. It's a horrific scene either way. In the movie, there is no two ways about it. Harry kills Quirrell. There's no two ways about it, guys. But from what I gather, Dumbledore does still save Harry in the book. And it says how Voldemort's left Quirrell to die. Which doesn't necessarily mean that Quirrell is dead, but I believe that Quirrell is dead. If I've got that wrong, guys, I'm so sorry. Maybe he'll show up in a future book, I don't know. But yes, here it's not as blatant as Harry absolutely did kill Quirrell, which is definitely what happened in the movie. So when Harry is grabbing Quirrell, the pain in his scar is such that he goes to pass out. And when he does, he like sees this golden light in front of him, and he thinks it's a golden snitch. I really like that, guys. It's actually really nice. That's actually a really sweet tie-in of earlier scenes and everything like that. And when he goes to grab it, he realizes it's not a golden snitch, and it's the gold on Dumbledore's glasses, who's there waiting for him to wake up. That was really sweet, guys. And this scene is pretty bang on as well. I'm pretty sure that we get more information from Dumbledore than is in the movie. We get a rundown of the gifts, including well, Dumbledore like says how George and Fred and George, I always call them George and Fred, I know it annoys some of you. Fred and George tried to gift Harry a toilet seat, but Madame Pomfrey put a stop to it. Now, when that bit was read out, I thought, I know that from somewhere. And so I had to look it up, guys, and it's what Fred, I think it's Fred or George, promised Ginny that they'll send to her. They said that they'll send her a toilet seat. So that's a nice little callback to the earlier scene. That was awesome. Fred and George are so good in the book, guys. They really, really were. So that's a really nice callback to right near the start of the book. Yeah, Dumbledore says that he was he got there just in time. He actually says that he was worried that he'd got there too late, in fact. Which is really what we need to go into about what Dumbledore knew what was going on in the situation, which we'll get to in these points. Yeah, Dumbledore talks about how James would use the stealth cloak to go around and steal food from the kitchens and everything. It's so nice to hear more about James, especially from Dumbledore. Because I don't think we ever hear Dumbledore talk about James at all in the movies. Oh no. You're going to tell me that... Okay, if he mentions this bit in the movie, guys, I apologise. Again, this is because I haven't watched the movie in such a long time. But to hear Dumbledore specifically talking about James... We know that Lupin talks about James and Lily. But does Dumbledore... I'm sorry, guys. I'm probably wrong here. But one thing I am certain that we don't hear about, guys, is how apparently James saved Snape's life, and how Snape is very he's bitter about having that over him, and so that's why he appears to want to save Harry throughout this. It's very interesting that Dumbledore says that that's why why Snape is trying to look after Harry. To say that he is trying to look after him at this point in the book is kind of in the story is quite bizarre. But yes, another little bit which was I'm fairly certain was not in the movies. Other than that, the scene is very, very similar. We have like the every flavour bean moment with earwax and so on and so forth. I think it's the same day that Harry and Hermione are allowed to visit Harry, whereas in the movie they're waiting outside the wing, which is a nice enough scene. But in this, they're actually allowed to visit for 5 minutes. They end up staying for 15. And Harry fills them all in on what actually happened. Like Hermione like freaks out when Harry tells them about Voldemort being on the back of Quirrell's head and so on. Oh yes, I forgot my note. What? Okay, so I'm a little bit confused, guys. Going on the audiobook, Hermione and Harry leave Ron, not knowing how badly injured he is. Because Ron tells them to. Ron says, "Go and do that because you need to get there, not me." But at no point does Harry like say to Dumbledore, "So how's Ron?" Now maybe Dumbledore does mention Ron. I think he does mention Ron early on actually. But yeah, it's interesting that Harry didn't actually specifically ask him out if Ron was okay. Again, I'm probably getting the wrong end of the stick there, guys. But that was something when making notes I did think is quite funny. So yes, Pomfrey allows Ron and Hermione to visit Harry. And Hermione actually chastises Dumbledore and says that he shouldn't have allowed Harry to get set up in this way to go after Quirrell. And this is a very interesting bit, guys, where Harry says that he doesn't think Dumbledore did set it up. He thinks that Harry was absolutely the reason why this happened, and Dumbledore didn't want to interfere, and so would just course correct Harry where he needed to. So my theory going into this was that Dumbledore had an overarching control of the entire situation, which is essentially what Hermione is saying. And the fact that Hermione would be like, how can Dumbledore do that in this point is actually something which I really didn't think about either, is the fact that it's actually quite negligent of a professor to be doing that. But Harry then says that no, he thinks that Dumbledore, he knew what was going on, but didn't want to interfere. Because I think that Harry says that he knew that Dumbledore knew that Harry was going to confront the villain eventually anyway, and so was just course correcting where he could. Although it said that when Dumbledore got to London, he instantly realised that it was a setup and started flying back, and must have passed Hedwig's notes halfway. So. That was very interesting. So that was certainly something which Dumbledore wasn't expecting, was the note that tricked him to go to London. Unless that was part of his setup as well. I don't think so. So the next day, Harry's feeling a lot better after a night's rest, and Hagrid gets to visit him. And Hagrid bursts into tears and really blames himself. And when I was listening to that, I was thinking, really? Would Hagrid ever blame himself for something like that? I don't know. Hagrid seems like such a... I don't know what the term is, like a whimsical child or something. I don't think that, at least in how I see Hagrid in my head, is that he would never really consider that he's to blame with anything. It's like when Buckbeak was going crazy at at Draco and everything. That is, oh man, I feel bad saying it, but it is Hagrid's fault because Hagrid is controlled there. But Hagrid still can't just own up to his responsibility there. Whereas here, Hagrid is unconsolable. He is really blaming himself. He's in tears, in fact. It's actually really sweet. So yeah, that does give me a different opinion of Hagrid. Because sometimes his negligence or his inability to see his mistakes is part of the best thing about it. But here, he really blames himself. He really does. And yeah, Harry tells Hagrid to start calling Voldemort by his full name, which is very nice, because obviously Dumbledore just told him to do the same in the previous scene, but Hagrid getting told that is pretty awesome. So I don't know if Hagrid's going to start saying Voldemort. I don't Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hagrid gives Harry the book. Now, obviously, in the movie, we have that beautiful train scene at the station, at Hogwarts Station. And that's the last scene of the movie where Hagrid gives Harry the book and he goes off on the train. That's such a beautiful scene that I thought that would absolutely be in the movie, in the book. It isn't in the book, guys. It really, which surprises me. We're still in the hospital wing when Hagrid gives Harry the book and he explains how he organised it so he could send out owls to all of James and Lily's friends so they could send some pictures to add into the book. So sweet, so sweet. So I'm hoping we hear more about what's actually in that book, guys, because that is adorable. And maybe we'll hear about, you know, I guess Lupin would have sent, yeah, Lupin could have sent a letter. Obviously not so much Sirius. Yeah, I'll be interested to hear what names are in that, actually. I actually really would be interested to hear which names are in that, if we do at any point. Now, there is a line in when Ron and Hermione are visiting Harry here, where like, Ron says, we already know that Slytherin have won. Which is very interesting, guys, because it is a lot more of a surprise. I think that people are expecting it, but it's not absolutely definite that Slytherin have the most points at this point. But obviously, with the big, are they egg timers or something? The big collectors showing all the points and everything, everyone would have known what the points were. And so at this point, Slytherin are essentially already the winners. They already have their colours in the Great Hall as well. That's not because of the previous year. It's because Slytherin have won this year, which makes this whole situation even worse, guys. It really does. So yes, they already have the colours in the room. But when Dumbledore comes in to the Great Feast and starts giving out points, he gives Ron points for his chess ability first. And the first thing that happens after he's given the points is that I think Harry hears Percy like saying, "That's my brother. That's my brother. He did that. He's great at chess," which is awesome, guys, because that coming from Percy is so out of character, but also it's exactly what Ron would love Percy to be saying. It's what he wants his family to be saying. It's like, that's my brother. Because Ron always feels a little overshadowed by his family. The fact that that happens in this scene with Percy of all people, I thought that was adorable. I thought that was actually really sweet. I'm really happy that we heard that little line from Percy. When Hermione gets given the points for her cool logic in the face of fire, which is obviously a direct reference to the fires that were surrounding the table of potions and everything. She actually like puts her head into her arms because Harry assumes that she's tearing up and everything, which is very, very sweet. Again, very, very different from the movie. That's not a bad change, though. That's such a minor change. That's absolutely fine. And when Neville gets given the extra 10 points, like, apparently they can't see him because everyone just leaps on top of him and are hugging him and everything, which is such an awesome, adorable image. Yeah, it's still bad what they do to Slytherin, guys. I don't know if Gryffindor, I'm going to start saying Gryffindor because of the books now. I don't know if Gryffindor readers and watchers of the movies have this same feeling of unfairness that other I mean, Slytherins must be furious with the end of the movie, guys. They really must with how it's not just the fact that it's Dumbledore who is a Gryffindor giving them just enough points to beat Slytherin, like just enough points to beat them, but doing it in front of everyone, with the Slytherin colours then changing to Gryffindor and so on. It does seem a bit mean. It really genuinely does. But you know what? It's fine. You know, I'm sure, you know, I mean, we know that Slytherin have won for a long time, and so they'll have their chance again. But yeah, the way that it's done does seem a little bit odd. Oh yes, so we have Snape apparently shaking hands with McGonagall, like putting on a fake smile. I would have loved to see that in the movie, guys. This whole time I am trying to not think of Alan Rickman with Snape, guys, because it is important, because Snape apparently is very, very different. He's already been very, very different, but it's important to consider book Snape and movie Snape to be quite different. So I do try to not think of Alan Rickman with it, but I just imagine Alan Rickman and Maggie Smith, and Snape's like, "Congratulations!" It's absolutely amazing. So that was great. He is there in the movie, but he's just like doing his little clapping and everything. Yeah, this is what I was talking about with Harry being so much more a realistic character in the book, guys. Is that he's celebrating with Ron and Hermione and Neville and everything, and then points at Draco. And like so Ron would look as well, who apparently is like, you know, absolutely gutted. That would never happen in the movie version, guys. Like Harry, at least in Philosopher's Stone, he's not that sort of kid. But he's literally pointing at Draco. It seems so horrible. But we know that Draco's a horrible kid. That's my point, guys. That Draco's a horrible kid. Harry can absolutely be horrible as well. And for him to not be horrible at all does make him a less interesting character, in my opinion. And so that's why in the book I do prefer this Harry. And it's nice to feel, oh, come on, Harry, you shouldn't be doing that. Because that's how people are. He's a 11-year-old kid. And, you know, parents or like, guardians or anything of an 11-year-old kid will be like, come on, you shouldn't be doing that. Which makes it so nice, so much nicer. I really like the fact that Harry is this realistic character who can be unpleasant. Because that was just horrible. It's like pointing at him. Anyway. So then, fast forward, I don't know how much time, but some time. And the exams are given out. You would have thought that the exams would have been given out before the feast. Oh, maybe not, actually. No, maybe not. So yeah, the exams are given out, and Harry and Ron are happy to see that they have passed. Hermione actually gets top points of the entire year, which is bully for her. And Neville does surprisingly well at herbology, which obviously we do know he goes into in Goblet of Fire. And then at other times you can see him with his like characters and everything. So he's clearly going big into herbology, which is good for him, good for Neville. It's Neville that passes out on with those screaming things on Chamber of Secrets, isn't it? Yeah, obviously got over that in a way. So yeah, so Neville's very, very good at herbology, which is excellent. Gotta love, everyone loves Neville, guys. Neville's such a great character. And as I was saying, guys, we don't have that beautiful train scene at all. It's just not there. We don't even have that final hug with Hagrid either. It's it kind of threw me for a loop, actually. It basically says like, they go across the water, they go onto the train goes past, they start to see greener areas and more recognisable Muggle areas, get into platform 9 3/4, and so that's all that whole beautiful scene at the end of the movie skipped. And it says like the attendants there are making sure that big crowds aren't going through the invisible the invisible walkway at the same time, just so like Muggles won't notice that they're being like, you know, allowed out in a certain amount of numbers and everything, which is very smart. That's a very, very good little bit of detail there. Ron invites Hermione and Harry over at some point over the summer, and he says that he's going to write them a letter. Now, I know that is obviously going to be playing into the start of the Chamber of Secrets, the fact that Harry hasn't been receiving any letters. So it was nice to get that little bit of information, the fact that Harry should be getting a letter, but he's not. And so in his head, he's thinking, it's not that people have just forgotten about him, it's the fact that people are actually changing their minds about him. And so it was nice to hear about that invite at this point. And Molly shows up again, guys. It's very nice that Harry like gets a chance to thank her for his sweater and everything. That was very, very sweet. And Vernon shows up again. I did not expect Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley to be in this again. It's only very, very brief. But Petunia and Dudley are actually really still freaked out by Harry, which is amazing. And Vernon and Molly have a very short conversation. I can't remember what it like says. Oh, you, the guardian, and like Vernon says something like that, and then walks off, something like that. But yeah, interaction between Vernon and Molly, guys. I wasn't expecting that. And even Hermione sees Vernon, guys, which is another thing which I wasn't expecting at all. And Hermione is like I said, taken aback by how rude Vernon is. But like, yeah, the final line in the book, guys, and again, this is going back to this mischievous side of Harry. Because Hagrid saying they don't know about not being allowed to use magic, that's all very good. But for Harry to be the one to say that is so much more interesting in my opinion. You know what? It actually reminds me of Prisoner of Azkaban Harry. Because in my opinion, guys, and I do need to rewatch all the movies, guys. In my opinion, Harry in Prisoner of Azkaban is just different. He has this edge and this... It's hard to choose the words because I want to use them correctly. But he definitely has this like edge to him. Where he's like a lot more boyish and a lot more... I don't want to use petty because I feel like petty is the wrong word. But he just seems so much more realistic as a kid. I do feel like Prisoner of Azkaban got so much right when it came to writing for that age group. Because that's the movie where I'm thinking, oh yeah, I remember that part of my childhood. Much more in that than I did the other movies. And so for Harry to be the one, it's like the line at the end of the movie. What is it? I so solemnly swear I'm up to no good. Which is obviously from the Marauders map and everything. But that I'm going to have a lot of fun with Dudley this summer. Harry's so much more an interesting character in this, guys. He really, really is. He's so much more an interesting character. I guess what I'll do now, let's go into the book club. Let's get the book club done and dusted. Thank you all so much for your submissions to it. And then I'll go into my final thoughts of the book. But yeah, I'll keep it short. I'll say who my favourite character is from it. And my favourite my favourite things which are in the books, but not in the movie. But yes, let's now move over to the book club. Okay, so welcome to the Harry Potter book club, guys. And so this is the page which is on Patreon. I post out blogs like this every now and then saying, hey, about to do these chapters. Please leave your comments below. It's a little bit of like, you know, simple rules, so like, you know, what to do and what not to do about, like, you know, mentioning things that are coming up and to be focused on these chapters and everything. But it's all very laid back, guys. You do what you want, really. And so thank you to everyone who has posted. And so if you do join a Patreon, like I say, you can do so for as little as you like. You could be a part of this as well. But now let's get into it. And we got a lot, guys, and so let's get through them. Lovegood. You already touched on Dumbledore being a bit of a puppet master, pushing Harry towards the confrontation with Voldemort in the last reaction. In these chapters, I feel that even more. I only think he made one miscalculation that almost got him killed. I'm wondering if that's the going off to London thing. The tasks almost seem tailor-made to Harry and his friends. They really do. Everyone knows that Hagrid can't keep a secret, Fluffy. Harry is the youngest Seeker in 100 years, Charms challenge. Ron is known to be good at chess, Transfiguration challenge. Hermione is known to be very logical, Potions challenge. And they already defeated a troll. Dada. Oh, Defense Against the Dark Arts. challenge Dada. And Harry already had encountered the mirror, so he sort of knew how it would work and wouldn't have been distracted as much by the vision. Very, very good point. One mistake of Dumbledore is probably expecting that Neville would go with them. Neville is known to be a prodigy of herbology, so he would know what to do. And I think it's interesting that of all people, it's Neville that surprised Dumbledore with his actions. That's a very interesting point, Lovegood. Yeah, maybe he did expect Neville to go along with him. Because Hermione does struggle with that devil snare task at the start, guys. She needs Harry and Ron to help her to work that out. And so that's very, very true. That would have been absolutely perfect for Neville. How very interesting. Dinsdale, I hope I'm saying that right. I love the potions challenge. I love that it's Snape that has to come up with it. Understandably, not that cinematic, so it didn't make it into the film. But shows Snape's intelligence with a challenge that would confuse or trap most wizards, as Hermione said. Yeah, because it's a logical thing rather than a magical thing. Very, very good point. And that is probably why they left it out of the movie, because it isn't visually that exciting. On the build up to being the final, the room before the final chamber. And because they lost that, they had to give Hermione her moment in the Devil's Snare. As Lovegood just made out, that room is really tailor-made to Neville. At least we hear about in the final. I'm pretty sure the first time we hear that Neville's good at herbology is in the feast at the end. If it's mentioned before then, please do let me know, but I think that it is. Benjamin, I should say, guys, I apologize about my reading. I am dyslexic. There is this one thing that confuses me every time. The difficulty of the challenges. How could the teachers think that these protections would hold anyone with a little bit of knowledge away from the stone? I mean, entering Hogwarts alone, undetected, would be quite impossible. So if someone managed to do that, these stone protections really wouldn't do anything. I think that Quirrell and Voldemort himself wouldn't get past Fluffy for most of the entire year. To think that Quirrell and Voldemort wouldn't get past Fluffy for almost the entire year is ridiculous. That's an interesting point, Benjamin. That is interesting. I do think some of the challenges would have been able to get past. As Dinsdale just remarked upon, maybe not the potions one, because it's such a logical thing and a lot of wizards just don't naturally think logically. Maybe because Snape isn't pure blood, he has an advantage over the rest. But that is a fair point, particularly with the Fluffy thing and the fact that it's just any music. It's an interesting point. AWR93. The twist with Quirrell being the bad guy was done much better in the book than in the movie, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with you as well, Arwen. I do think not Arwen, sorry, AWR. I do think it certainly is a lot longer. And I think that it set up Snape and Quirrell a lot better in general in the books for that moment to be so much of a bigger twist. As I remember, I was like, oh, it's that guy. When I was reacting to the movie, but in the books we know that Quirrell really isn't this person, and Quirrell has really been interacting a lot with Snape, not just that one time in the movie. So yeah, I agree, it is better done in the book. I don't think it's terribly done in the movie, but I do think it's better done in the book. Catty, since the trio thought it was Professor Snape, I tried imagining them dramatically doing all the tasks. Also, I feel like the chess scene is more violent in the book. It's certainly very different. It seems a lot faster, I definitely felt. Yeah, the chess scene is very... I think it's done very well in the movie, but it is definitely very different in the book. Yeah, and you know what, Catty, what you say about trying to imagine Snape dramatically doing all the tasks. Me too. Like, in my head, like, through each of them. I think when it was going through the book. Not so much in the movie, quite frankly, but whilst they're going through the book, I was thinking, okay, so they think that Snape has gone through here, so how would a Snape done that? It's very interesting. And obviously, we now find out that it was actually Quirrell who would have done that. But yeah, I did exactly the same thing. Josh, I don't know if you noticed, but the Devil's Snare is totally different from the book. In the movie, Ron is made to look like a total idiot, blindly screaming his head off. Moments like this are how movies blow characterization, and it also happens, and I always found it super disrespectful to fantastic characters of that in the book. I completely agree. I do completely agree, Josh. I think that with this specific... With Devil's Snare specifically, I think there is a specific reason why they changed that. Because quite frankly, Hermione is acting like an idiot in the book in that. Because she's like saying, I don't have any wood to make a fire. She's already made, like, was it blue fire or purple? She's made a different colour of green? She's made a different type of fire. I think it's blue. Several times throughout the book, and now she suddenly forgot that she can do it. And so really, it's replaced Hermione with Ron in that moment, and given Hermione her payoff, the fact that she's able to get them through that room. Because we don't have the potion scene in the movie. So, for most of the times when they changed Hermione, I've not liked it, guys, because quite frankly, I've much preferred Hermione in the book. I think that she's so much more a relatable, interesting character. And from what I gather, I don't know if it's the director, but someone made the specific choice of making her, more capable in the movie, which I do think takes away from her. Like you say, and it takes away from Ron by making him more stupid. Because he does seem a lot more a buffoon in the book, guys. He really does. In fact, I think he even takes on some of Neville's silly moments as well in the movie. I do feel like with this specific instance that there was a reason behind it. That's just my opinion, though. I feel like because they were cut for time, they couldn't have all 7 chambers. They had to lose a couple, and as it was Snape's potion one that was lost, they had to give Hermione her moment. Harry was always going to do the Flitwick Keys one. Ron was always going to do the chess one. They needed to give Hermione that payoff. And so I think that that's why they did it there. Did they go too far with it and make Ron screaming his head off and Hermione looking at him like that a little bit too far? I will go with yes, I agree with you. I agree that they took it a little bit too far. But the fact that it was Hermione's moment was great. And also the line where Ron says, "Huh, lucky we didn't panic." Even at the time I was thinking that's kind of a bad line. I apologise. Michelle, I love the twist at the end using Snape as a red herring. It really does. Such a great moment when you realise all the shady things he did throughout the book was perceived wrong. Absolutely. I'll be honest, the referee thing, even right up to that line when it was being read out, I didn't expect that was the reason why Snape was doing that. As someone who knows what the twist is going to be, I didn't give that a second's thought. And so having all those holes filled in, it's just perfect. It was actually really well done. I agree, Michelle. Rebecca, the line, Harry pocketed Hagrid's flute to use on Fluffy. He didn't feel much like singing. Is underrated comedy gold. Such a hilarious image. You know what, Rebecca? I didn't even pick up on that line. That is hilarious. Imagine Harry singing along. That would be absolutely amazing. Because he's a kid of the 90s, isn't he? So he'd probably be singing some late 80s, early 90s stuff, which Ron would have no idea about at all. But yes, the fact that it's any music is something which clearly I just misunderstood. I think I must have just misunderstood it from the movie. But yeah, the fact that it's just any music will put Fluffy to sleep. I'll be honest, I didn't understand. I realised that was the case. Also, I can now never read or watch the end of Year Feast without thinking they golden snitched it. And no, that's not a complaint. I love it. That's awesome, Rebecca. Thank you very much. Yes, I remember that was my comment during my reaction. They golden snitched it. It's quite a good term. In fact, there's a suit makers not too far away from me called the Golden Stitch. But yes, the golden snitched it is definitely something which that was a good moment in my reaction. I don't mind saying. It's a dance thing. When I first watched this movie, I remember being so frustrated about what was left out. Final exams, the extra task to get to the stone, Harry talking to Dumbledore, the toilet seat. Nice pickup. But after a while, I realised the books and the movies need to be looked at two separate entities. That's fair. They are both complete in their own right, even though there are differences. I completely agree. It's a dance thing. There's certain things that you got to be able to forgive. Like I say, with the Devil's Snare in particular, I think there is a reason for it. I do think that there are things which, when you change a character too much, it can detract from it. And I'll say this again, for probably the third time in this video, I do prefer Harry and Hermione as they are in the book much more. But when you're up against it, when you have so many other things you have to cover in a movie, you got to streamline some things, and so they are completely different entities. You got to look at it like that. I do think though that Harry, Ron, and Hermione seem more like kids in the book than they do in the movie. They have moments of panic where they forget things, they act silly, they get frustrated easily. I'll add to that list. They also seem a lot more petty against Draco. With good reason and everything, but the book seems more accurate to me to portray the portrayal of 3 11-year-old wizards trying to fight one of the most deadly wizards of all time. I also think that Harry didn't outright kill Quirrell in the book. Absolutely. I'm surprised how much that was glossed over in the movie. Yeah, there's no two ways about it. He decides to put his hand on Quirrell's face. So that is, absolutely that he killed him. We don't see Quirrell die in the book. And the line that Dumbledore says is that Voldemort left him to die. Does that mean that once Voldemort leaves you, then you ought... I don't know. I don't know if he's technically dead, guys. I'd imagine he probably is. But thank you very much, It's a Dark Swing. Great comment. Oh my goodness, I'm going to struggle to say his name. Is it Hawa? I'm so sorry. One thing that bothers me, when the trio learn they were wrong about Snape, they don't draw any conclusions from it. None of them feel guilty that they were wronged him so much, falsely accusing him of a murder attempt and horrible crimes, in Hermione's case, even physically attacking him. That's very true. Did set fire to him. None of them even thinks about apologizing. I think at least Hermione should have been horrified learning how wrong she was when she attacked Snape. False accusation is a serious matter that can destroy a person's life, but the book treats it like no big deal. How interesting a comment. That is awesome. Now, I will take you back to my movie reaction of Philosopher's Stone. I may have mentioned it in Chamber at the start. The fact that there is no payoff of where was Snape at the time, or this moment of like saying, yeah, Snape wasn't doing this, and like Snape saying, I wasn't doing this, it feels weird how it's like, oh, Snape wasn't involved. Okay, well that's Snape done with the movie then, or done with the book then. It's all like, there's no resolution. And your comment's right. Hermione would absolutely feel very bad about that, but if she hadn't done it, Quirrell would have, I'm not going to say that. Alright, I will. Tossed off Harry. That's literally what he was trying to do. Right, so that's a very good point. It does feel like I even felt it at the end of the movie, that it does feel like there is this thing of, well, where's the scene where, like, Snape is kind of redeemed? But you're talking about apologies, though, and to be fair, that's fair. I do feel like, because they're all pretty scared of Snape at this point. They are still 11 years old. Might be one reason where they're just thinking, okay, let's just never mention it again. Maybe that's it, but very good point. Claire. I really like Hermione's potion challenge that she does. It's such a pity it's not in the film. I remember as a kid, I was very disappointed when I realised that they skipped it. Yeah, Claire, it is great. Like a previous comment said, it's not the most action-packed of the chambers. And so maybe that's why they lost it. But it really is Hermione's big moment to shine, though. Being completely logical. And the fact that she's Muggle-born, the fact that she's able to work out more likely than any other wizard because she has this logic, which a lot of wizard folk wouldn't have. It is a great moment in the book. It is a great moment in the book. It is a shame that they dropped it. Digo. Interesting trivia. You can actually not solve the potion riddle yourself. Oh, from the information given in the book. This is because you don't know the order in which the flasks are arranged. That's very good, because that's a very good point. It's because it's saying 2 from the left and all that sort of, well, you don't know where on the table that is, and so that's a very good point. I noted this when trying to solve the riddle myself, and I double checked on the internet to make sure it was a thing, and it's not just me being dumb. It's not you being dumb, it's something that can't be solved. So Rowling had created a riddle that the reader can't solve because he lacks visual information, but Hermione can. I don't know though whether she did this on purpose or just thought no one would bother. Oh no, Diego, sorry. People definitely would have. I think there's no way that people wouldn't have tried to solve that. So I'm sure that she was thinking that people would. But it's very interesting that it can't actually been solved. I assumed that it would have been able to. Thank goodness I didn't get a pen and paper out and try and work it out whilst doing these reviews. Judith. In the movie, Harry kills Quirrell without a second thought and even feeling bad about it. Now that is an opening line. I thought that was just so out of character, especially in the movie Harry. Very good point. The books are so much more realistic with Harry defending himself but nearly losing to Quirrell. He's 11. That's very true, and it goes back to what I'm saying about Harry being this really clean-cut guy. But then he shoves his hand into this... Oh, sorry. It's a camera. Shoves his hand into this guy's face and kills him at the age of 11. It's pretty extreme. But yeah, you're right. I definitely prefer how that's done in the book. Sandra. How do you feel about the extra challenges and the tasks to get to the stone that are covered in the book? I understand you can't keep everything into the book in the movies, but I was particularly sad that they didn't keep the potion to one. Yeah, this is going back to the comment just now. And you know what I particularly like about the additional challenges? Is that it really gives each professor a different thing. And so I really like that, because the fact that you can say, this is Madam Sprout's one. Where if they had it in the movie, you'd say, oh, who's Madam Sprout? Then Madam Sprout turns up in the chamber. You're like, oh, this is Madam Sprout. So that would have been really nice to have like these things where you could really latch onto, oh, this is the sort of thing that this professor would do. This is the sort of thing that this professor you can do. That would do. Because they cut two of them, you kind of lose all of that. Like, I didn't think for a second that McGonagall would have had anything to do with the chessboard game. But if you give each professor a word, each professor a different chamber, then yeah, you're already able to think, oh yeah, that's something that she would do. It is a shame, isn't it? Looking back as an adult, I find it weird that the teachers used little quizzes and physical challenges to protect stones instead of massive protective spells. That's a fair point. But I get that that's ultimately a children's book. It really is, particularly Philosophers. So it's more exciting this way and actually solvable for the trio. I'm trying to think of any other like riddles or puzzles that they had to solve in the rest of the books, because I'm wondering if this is also just the wizard's way. Because even Gringotts uses tricks. Like Gringotts in the book, it like says how if you touch the door of I think it's of Harry's vault, isn't it? Then it pulls you in, and then you're stuck inside there, and then you have oh my goodness, what's her name? Bellatrix. You have Bellatrix vault, where if you touch something, then it multiplies. And so, trickery and quizzes and puzzles is possibly what they just see as being protection in the minds of wizards and witches. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. It almost feels quite computer gamey, and that's a term which I use quite a lot when I'm doing these movie reactions and so on. But yeah, it does feel like quite computer gamey. You have like the next level, you know, it's next computer game level and so on. But yeah, you're right. If they were smarter, they should have like just had like a bunch of Dementors, I guess it would have been, wouldn't it? Like sitting outside it. Stephanie. Something that always stuck out to me is the idea of the challenges being reset. We see that not everything can be reset because the troll is still knocked out from Quirrell conveniently. But Hermione calls out that the potion is not enough for two people, and the chessboard would have been destroyed because of the nature of the wizard's chess. Oh, that's very interesting. I also love the visual of Quirrell doing all the tasks, like flying around with the broom, yes, after the keys and catching him himself. I always thought it would be funny if he wasn't good at chess and and the gang caught up with him in there and they're like overlapped. Oh, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing stuff. And it's maybe someone in mini golf. That would be absolutely hilarious. Playing through. That would have been a great scene. That's very interesting. I'm wondering if Voldemort and Quirrell's intellect were able to somehow find out which key Flitwick had as the correct one, or were able to make a copy of it, or if they looked into McGonagall's logic at chess. And I don't know, there's a lot of things that they could have done outside of the chamber, in the same way that they were able to work out that you could get past Fluffy by playing music. And so I'm wondering if they also did other things behind the scenes to try and work these things out, because we know that these tasks were made by the wizards. So it's even possible that Voldemort and Quirrell were actually spying on the others when they were doing it. When it comes to the reset, the good thing with fantasy and sci-fi is that you can write anything off. And so all you had to do is say, once it was all done, Dumbledore did a spell to say that once things have been knocked around, half an hour later, everything reverts back to how it was when the spell was first said. So in Magic, you can do anything like that. You can really just reset everything, just so, like, you know, things get replenished and everything, like the potions and everything. But yeah, Quirrell getting caught whilst playing chess would be hilarious. Jonas, one bit I realised I was missing from the movie is Hagrid crying after realising his mistake. He told a stranger how to get around Fluffy in the movies, there's basically no reaction from him at all. That's very true, Jonas, and that kind of set my opinion of Hagrid from there on. Because I just felt he was this person who doesn't ever take responsibility. You know, it's the same with Norbert, when Norbert's like, I think it bites Ron, and Hagrid reprimands Ron. Well, it's Hagrid's fault that it happened, because Hagrid shouldn't have this frickin' dragon that bit Ron. But Hagrid can't see it like that. He can only see that it must have been someone else's fault. And so that really does add a lot to him, the fact that he was so remorseful about what he had done in telling the stranger about Fluffy. Can't wait to hear your thoughts and book one finished. Hype! Yes, we're there. Seeing your exploring Chamber of Secret is going to be awesome. Thank you, Jonas. I will try and get it more, get those to you faster. I really appreciate that. Charlotte writes, Through the Trapdoor is a great early example of how deliberate JK is with her writing of the trio. We have 4 challenges here. One that they solve with teamwork, and then one for each of the trio. Very good point. You're talking about Devil's Snare, right? Then in the climax of the second book... Oh, I don't know if I should read this. Then in the climax of the second book... I'm sorry, Charlotte. I'm going to avoid reading the rest of your message. I'm so sorry about this. Okay, I'll explain, Charlotte. So, because there are going to be certain things in the books which I don't know about, I really want to avoid reading them until I get to the chapter. So, Charlotte, thank you very much for your comment. And you're it's very true that there is a task for Ron, Hermione, and Harry, and then one where they all had to work together. Is absolutely spot on. I'm so sorry I couldn't read the rest of your comment, Charlotte. I apologise. Kevin. I always love how at the ending, Dumbledore makes it a point to make sure that it's Neville's points, not Harry's, but Neville's points that secure victory for Gryffindor. Just a great way of boosting Neville's confidence and hinting at how much of a hero he would be. That's so true. That's such a good point, Kevin. The fact that, because normally you'd do the least points until most points, but the fact that they did the smallest amount of points last and it was Neville who got them. Yeah, it's foreshadowing how how important Neville's going to be. Seriously, Charlotte, I'm very sorry about not being able to read the rest of your comment. It could be that your comment's absolutely fine when it comes to that. I just had to avoid it, so I feel bad about that. I'm sorry. Emma. I was in my 20s when I first started reading the Potter books. I was going through a rough patch in my life, and it took me away from it. It's exactly what Helena Bonham Carter was saying during the 20th anniversary. It's a safe space, isn't it? I'm now 42, and I've read, listened, and watched the films millions of times. I have a huge a huge merchandise, and I mean stupid amounts. That's awesome. All who know me think I'm mad. You're not mad at all. You're a passionate fan, Emma, and so that's really awesome. And I mean, not only Helen Bonham Carter, but so I remember she put it in a really good place. I can't remember who she was talking about. It may have been a relative or something, but she said how these books are a safe place where people can retreat to and just feel safe in, and just block out everything else. And so I'm so glad that you had something like this to latch onto, and it's been such an important part, of your life. And the merchandise sounds amazing. I know there's a lot of merchandise, guys. I actually saw a I actually saw a Hufflepuff glass a couple of days ago, and I didn't buy it. Who the heck do I think I am? Dara. Said it before, I was not surprised Quirrell was the bad guy. I was kind of sad that they left the potion riddle out. You're not alone there. Also, it felt kind of unfair of Dumbledore to reward points during the feast and not before. Surely he realised who won. Always felt like showing the Slytherins which house he prefers. It's true, and you have to remember that Slytherin has won like several times on the trot at this point. But in the movie, I do feel like it is like, oh, Slytherin won. Oh, okay. People probably expected it. But in the book, you had the big hourglasses with the points being collected, and so everyone would have actually known that Slytherin had won this year because the points are right there. The fact that Dumbledore does it there, I would love to hear, and in no way starting an argument, I would love to hear a fair defense of Dumbledore doing this at that point. I genuinely would, and I won't be rebutting it. I won't say, no, you're wrong because of this. I would love to hear your genuine thoughts if you think that there's a reason why Dumbledore did it, or if you think it's fine that Dumbledore did it in that way. But yeah, it is strange, in my opinion. And yes, I get it, it's a kid's book. The only thing that made it better was that Neville was the one to actually win for Gryffindor. Maybe that's it. Because we know that Draco has been bullying Neville up to this point. But we don't know if loads of other Slytherin had been doing it. So maybe that could be a justification. If Slytherin were like widely bullying Neville, then I'm all up for that sort of retribution, I guess you'd call it in a way. But then again, that's not in the book or the movie, so I can't say that that's the case. I'd love to hear a fair defense of Dumbledore. Okay, so Gary writes, we talk a lot about how the books are different from the movies, but rereading them, I was struck by how much of the dialogue is identical. Movie Dumbledore is also exactly as I imagine him. Richard Harris was just magical. Very true. Very excited for more Potter Book Club, and I can't wait for book 2. Thank you so much, Gary. You know what? Because you specifically say Dumbledore, one moment which I would have loved them to have in the movie and they didn't, is where Dumbledore in the Sorting Hat ceremony gets up and says, I've just got a few words I want to say, and then he just says gibberish and then sits back down. That is, I remember, I don't know if you've seen Charlie and Chocolate Factory, guys, or is it, no, it'd be Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, the original movie. I haven't seen Charlie and Chocolate Factory with Johnny Depp. I've only seen the original Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. That's right, isn't it? I only saw it a couple of years ago as well. That would have been a great reaction. Oh well, it's a shame I can't do it. I could do the remake, where Willy Wonka comes out. Gene Wilder, isn't it? Gene Wilder? I always get him muddled up with the other Gene. Hang on. Oh, no, I can't do that. Yes, Gene Wilder. Just like such a lovable comedy actor, guys. He's just amazing in everything. Where he comes out as Willy Wonka, and he's seen as this, he's known as this incredible person, but he's like also like a hermit. No one really knows what he's like and everything. And he comes out with this cane, and he's like walking really slowly, and everyone's like, oh wow, this is not what we expected at all. And then he does like a forward roll, and I think like he doesn't need the cane at all. So he's like he was pretending that he needed the cane the entire time. I remember someone synopsing that scene as being that's Willy Wonka basically telling everyone who's watching that never suspect the unexpected, that anything can happen, and to never trust anything. And I feel like that would have been such a nice moment to have in the movie as well, just sending out that moment of, oh, this guy's the head of here, but is he trying to be funny? Is he nuts? Or is he trying to make us think that? So that was a great line that was in the book, which I do kind of wish was in the movie, but it's very true. Throughout this, I've been thinking Richard Harris in my head for Dumbledore, and we'll see if that changes as we go, guys. But Richard Harris really was fantastic in that role. Paula, the movies gave way too many hints that Quirrell was the bad guy. As an adult or even a teen reading the book, one might have been able to figure out, but at the time. And let's remember when this was written, children's books did not do this. They didn't have this massive twist at the end. Since this book was written, the twist at the end has become very popular, very interesting, in both young adult and adult literature. That's very true. I have now started to expect it and look for it. Reading now in 2022, it's so very different from reading it years ago when the twist at the end wasn't a thing. No one expected that. That's a very interesting opinion, Paula. To be honest, I wouldn't really know about that because I was not a massive reader when I was younger, hence why I didn't check any of these out. Because of my dyslexia, reading was actually quite a burden to me. But it's very interesting that the twist at the end, because even with movies, is that every movie now has to kind of have a twist. Whereas that didn't used to be the case, guys. There would be movies with like massive twists and everything, but every movie didn't have to have this big payoff twist at the end. Whereas now, like you say, you find yourself looking for it, and so yeah, maybe if you're looking for it, then you probably are gonna find that Quirrell was the one. Mantazu. I'm so sorry. The one thing I wish this book would reveal was how exactly Quirrell managed to break into Gringotts and almost steal the stone. Very good point. Maybe because of Voldemort. Because even the trio couldn't do it in Deathly Hallows without the help of a goblin, a dragon, and leaving a lot of damage behind. That's very true. That's very true. I'd imagine it's something to do with Voldemort. Maybe Voldemort knew something going in, maybe something from back when he was still around about Gringotts. You always have to remember that Quirrell always had Voldemort on his side. Maybe not in his head literally, but maybe on his side. So I'm wondering if that's why, but it's a good point actually, because Gringotts does not play, guys, when it comes to security. Anne-Marie, I think the challenges to get to the stone showed one major flaw in the movies. The fact that they only made Hermione seem smart. She is smart in the logic in books. Ron is amazing at strategy like chess, which even in the Muggle world is hard. Harry excels at defense against the dark arts and just having a good heart. I think it's huge movie flaw that they didn't show the others standing out. It's true. That only made Hermione smart. Yeah, this is what we're going into earlier on, where Hermione is so different in the books. Again, I would say with the... I'm sure you're sick of me saying it by now, guys, but I feel like there is a reason why they did it with the Devil Snare, because they were cutting out the other two to give Hermione that moment. But Hermione in the movies... I really enjoyed Hermione in the movie. I've got to say movie because we're only covering one book here. but I do definitely prefer her in the book. So yeah, I agree, Anne-Marie. Jeren, I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Poor Neville. The one time he stands up to people, he gets petrified by Hermione. But he does have the best character arc of the whole series. I would agree with you. Just wish they showed more of it in the movies. By the way, love these reactions. I look forward to seeing your reactions as the books evolve to be more intriguing. Thank you very much. That's very, very kind of you. I'm so sorry, so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but it's very true. No, I think my movie reaction showed, guys, that my love of Neville just got more and more strong as the movies went on. So yeah, it would have been nice to see more of that, but it is also, I still love him. He's still my dude. Georgia, I'm terrible at reading names. I'm so sorry. I love the extra obstacles in front of the stone in the book, especially the potions one. Again, everyone loves this potions one. Poor troll. I hate how the movie portrayed Ron in the Devil's Snare situation, and to make Hermione seem smarter, better is the word there, isn't it? But I suppose she needed her moment to shine. If it's not in the potions part, exactly my point. Thank you very, very much. I will say that you can tell J.K. Rowling was not an experienced writer yet, as I find the ending to be, dare I say, anticlimactic. Very interesting. Also, I sadly found the last few lines a bit of letdown. It's almost as if the book was kind of just finishes out of nowhere without any real impact. You know what? This is the difference. It's Georgia, right? I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong. That scene at the end of that final scene at the end of Philosopher's Stone, the movie, is beautiful. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it seemed weird that in the book it just kept on going. And I really like the final line. I really do like the final line because it really gives Harry that edge that he doesn't have in the movies. But you're right. The end of the movie is so beautiful as they, pull away from the station to go home. And yet in the movie it's like, then they get home and Vernon's there. They have a bit of a chat at the end. So yeah, I do kind of get what you're getting at, actually. That's pretty amazing. Tammy, I just love how Harry is pretending to be the bloody Baron to get past Peeves and use Hagrid's flute to get past Fluffy. I think those scenes are way underrated. I also think it could be pretty cool that we got more riddles and tasks from the other teachers in the book. What do you think about them? I think they're awesome. Like I say, I do. With the troll one, I kind of like the fact that it was kind of already solved for them because we already have had a big Defense Against the Dark Arts scene with obviously the troll attack earlier on. And it does seem like it was the same troll. The potions one is awesome. How exciting that would have been just before the final big battle. It's so logical because Hermione says, give me a minute. So that we would have had, because if Hermione worked out straight away, that would have been stupid. It's like Harry reads out the riddle and she says, oh, it's that one. That would have been rubbish. So you would have had this moment where Hermione's like going, that one. And, which could work, but it may have slowed down the pace of the movie a little bit. Maybe that's what they're thinking. But it definitely seems like you guys really are let down about the potion scene not being in there. And you know what? I am too. It was really cool, and it really was a great moment because Hermione was like really excited that she could work it out. It wasn't like this smug, I know the answer. It's about, oh, I know the answer. She's like really excited about it, which is so book Hermione. The fact that she's like she's really excited about the fact that she knows the answer to this thing. Yeah, it is a shame. Thank you very much for your comment, Elizabeth. I read this book for the first time when I was 15, 2001, and had never seen a twist villain like this before. In those days, villains in children's media were always immediately recognizable. Very true. Even if the protagonist didn't know who it was, the audience would usually figure it out. So those words, it was Quirrell, were a shock to me. I love the way that the penultimate chapter ends as well. The fact it says it's not Snape and it's not Voldemort. It's someone else. That was very cool. I didn't realise we were supposed to even doubt who the bad guy was. Again, children's media. I thought it was just a Disney-esque obvious villain is obvious. I thought the movie actually made it a little easier to figure out, mainly because when Quirrell gets knocked over in the box, it's like a passing detail, but when it happens in the movie, it's emphasized by showing him get back up. I will say this, when I first watched it, I didn't notice it at all. When I watched the movie again, I definitely saw it, but that's kind of how you want it to be, though, right? You want to be able to work out the situation once you know the twist upon rewatching. It would have been better done if they just had a shot of him getting knocked down in the background and that was it. But that's just my feeling. I get that, Elizabeth. I get that. My question: what is your favourite thing the book did that the movies didn't, and vice versa? Oh, vice versa. The movies, the best thing the movies did that the books didn't. Oh my goodness, that is a good question. I may have to come back to you on that, Elizabeth. That is a really good question. I know what the other way around is going to be, and we're going to get into it at the end if that's okay. But yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I'll say this. I know it's not, you can't do this in a book. The music that is in the movies is fantastic. So that's definitely a big selling point for the movies, without it being compared to the books. But that is a good question. Yeah, I'm trying to think now. That's a very good question. Ashley. So Quirrell had a troll as his defense strategy for the stone, and then a troll shows up on Halloween. This should have been a giveaway. Also, Hermione was a star that with that potions riddle. Thanks, Veggie. She really was. That is such a great scene that maybe wouldn't work that well in the movies, but in the book, it's so awesome. And yeah, the fact that Quirrell is the defense against the dark arts teacher, and he is the one who should be solving the troll. But then again, we know that he's a massive character, or we assume that he's a massive character because it's obviously put on, isn't it? Yeah, that's very, very interesting. It is. That is yet another one of those clues. And yet, I love how the Devil Snare challenge shows that Hermione isn't perfect, like in the movie. Hermione froze with her face with real danger, and her brilliant logic just escaped her. Harry is the leader because he used his gut instinct, which allowed him to, oh my goodness, pivot strategies quickly. I'm so sorry, and yet it's not because the way that you've written your comment. It's my dyslexia. My brain is giving up, I'm afraid. It's nothing to do with how you've written your this message. It's written perfectly. It also shows that Ron is neither stupid or lacking of courage in the chess challenge, since he risked injury was much higher in the book than in the movie. That's very true. Yeah, because you do go from Ron freaking out with the weeds on him, but then 2 scenes later he's basically essentially giving his life away. It's very, very true. I don't know how far I want to push this, guys. I do feel like I don't know if it's the right decision with the Devil Snare. They had to give Hermione her moment where she absolutely logically solved the problem. Now you can do that without Ron looking like an idiot. And you can do it without Hermione looking at Ron like that whilst he's freaking out. And you can do it without her kind of sounding like she's nagging them, telling them to calm down. So yeah, maybe the Devil Snare scene in the movie wasn't that greatly done, even if they were going to that was Hermione's time to shine. But I will give it a slight pass because they lost the potion scene. But yeah, Hermione's just better in the books, guys. Oh, I don't know how to read this at all. Is it Fear? Quirrell is such an interesting... I'm so sorry about reading your name wrong. Quirrell is such an interesting character because he doesn't seem like a bad guy at all until the big reveal at the end of the first book. I think he's putting on this character, isn't it? the stuttering coward and so on. There might be some clues here or there, but you wouldn't expect someone like him to follow Voldemort, especially since Krill was the teacher of the especially since Krill was the teacher of Muggle studies before he became professor of the... Is that in the book? Did it say that? Wow, I didn't realise that. If I'd mentioned that before, guys, I apologise, but I didn't know that. That's fascinating. Fear. I'm so sorry. In the end, it seems to be his hunger for power that eventually turns him into a loyal servant of Voldemort. Very interesting. However, since a part of Voldemort's soul lives in his body, wouldn't that technically make Krill a Horcrux? At least temporarily. Keep up the good work, Veggie. Greetings from Germany. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry about my terrible reading of your name. That's very, very true that he would technically be a Horcrux, wouldn't he? Oh, man. So imagine that on, like, Deathly Hallows. They're like, well, we destroyed a Horcrux. What else? Oh, no, we need to go and find Krill's ashes. Because we know that Harry just dying wouldn't have been enough. He had to get killed by Voldemort. And so, yeah, you wouldn't just be able to, like, destroy the ashes. Sarah. Hermione always liked to go through their exam papers afterwards, but Ron said it made him feel ill, so they wandered down to the lake and flopped under the tree. This is such a hilarious moment for me, as it perfectly shows how different Hermione and Ron are when it comes to exams and the academic aspects of their time at Hogwarts. Absolutely. That is a great line. That really is. And especially, that line is said whilst Harry is still really, really under stress. And it shows the fact that Hermione and Ron just aren't feeling that same level of fear about Voldemort. The fact that they're still having their usual, bickerings and everything. The fact that Ron says it makes him feel ill is amazing. And also, it's the first day where they're able to just go outside and enjoy the sun as well. Which, to be fair, Hogwarts looks like it is a beautiful area, and so I'd be up for that. I wouldn't be going anywhere near the squid though. Which of the 3 practical exams mentioned do you think you would have been most likely to ace and to fail if you had been in the first year of Hogwarts? Oh, here we go. Charms, where you had to make a pineapple tap dance across the desk. I'll be honest, Sarah, if I knew that was a thing, I would spend every night and day learning how to do it perfectly. So I would ace that, definitely. Transfiguration to turn a mouse into a snuff box. Wouldn't be up for that. I wouldn't be up for that because I would be terrified about hurting the mouse. I know that it doesn't hurt the mouse, but if you do it wrong, it's going to hurt the mouse, is what I'm saying. And so, yeah, I'd be freaked out by that. Number 3, potions where your task would be to make a forgetfulness potion. I'd be terrible at that. Okay, I would ace the dancing pineapple. Just because even if in real life I heard that was a thing that someone could do, I would spend the rest of my days learning how to do it perfectly. But the other 2 I would suck at. Great question, Sarah. Thank you very much. And Kirsten with the final question. Thank you very much. By the way, shout out to my Lord of the Rings reaction, guys. Can I just say that, guys? Whenever I have thumbnails like this, that's never posed. That is always from the video, by the way. So this stupid face is legit. Anyway. And there have been some calls for me to do a book club for Lord of the Rings eventually, guys. We shall see. We shall see. I think Dumbledore was testing Harry to see what he can do, since Dumbledore knows part of Voldemort lives in Harry. I think Voldemort wanted... Does he know at this point for certain? Or is that not something that was learnt in Order of the Phoenix? No, he probably would have done... No, yeah, because... Yeah, no, you're right, Kirsten, you're right. I think Voldemort wanted to see how far Harry would go and how he would do about it. Would Harry attack Snape or Krill? Or would he tell a teacher? He helped Harry understand the mirror and gave him back the cloak because he knew Harry wouldn't stop until he got to the stone and make sure it stayed safe. That's very, very interesting, Kirsten. I didn't even think about the fact that Dumbledore potentially knows about the whole Harry having part of Voldemort inside of him. at that point. I do feel like if I was in any of the situation, I would have been telling the teachers throughout. I mean, let's face it, guys. In Chamber of Secrets, throughout the movie, I'm like saying, Harry should probably go and have a word with Snape about this. That was never going to happen, knowing their characters now. But that's very, very interesting that Dumbledore, and how much Dumbledore is really testing Harry, directing Harry, or just course-correcting Harry. Because it turns out, because even Harry says he doesn't think that Dumbledore was just completely controlling him. And so how much of that was actually Harry's choice making and Dumbledore assisting it is a big debate point, guys. That's something that could be talked about for generations. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for taking part in this book club. This is another bumper one. It's going to be the longest video of the series. I guess now I should really go into the things which I like the most about this book. I don't know if I should save... I think I'm going to save some of that for the next book intro, if that's okay, guys, because I don't want to get this to go on for too long. Favourite thing about this book? Hermione. I really like book Hermione, guys. I really do. And like a lot of you saying about her being perfect and everything in the movie, I definitely get that. And apparently that was a conscious decision. It is my opinion that was a bad decision because she's so much more relatable in the books. She really is. But then again, she does absolutely have the moments of weakness, guys. The fact that she's off in the loose crying because of what Ron said and everything. I mean, that's not like, that's not like a perfect, confident person. Sure, she does help Ron and Harry defeat the troll. But is that too much of a bad thing? The Devil's Snare, I would defend the fact that they needed to give Hermione her big end of movie victory, which replaced the potions. That being said, the potion scene is a lot better. Hermione's my favourite thing about the books. Harry being a lot more realistic is definitely something which I like a lot, and learning more about Ron is awesome, and his family. The fact that Fred and George are in it so much, Percy being in it and everything. But then Charlie writing letters and everything. I'm loving that as well. Peeves is awesome. Who's the other big character that we didn't have? Who's the other big character that wasn't in oh my goodness, that was in the books that wasn't in the movie? There is another. Okay, Peeves is awesome, and the other character which I'm trying to think of, Filch getting a lot more time in it was awesome. That scene where Draco tricks Harry into meeting up for a duel, and then it turns out it was complete setup. That wasn't in the movie at all. I really liked that bit. The books are... Okay, I can't say the books. The first book is a joy to read after you've watched the movie. Because it's like an extended edition. It's not even like an extended edition. It's like an improved version of it. And because you know all these characters already in your head, you can visualize it really easily. Filch is definitely still played by the guy who plays Filch in my head in the book. I am trying to not do that with Snape, obviously, like I've said before, but it's difficult. The hearing more about the ghosts, like the friar talking to them and so on and so forth, was awesome. The sorting out scene, I think trying to think of something which is better in the movie than in the book is tough, guys. You know what? I will think about that and get back to you on my Chamber of Secrets book review. We will be trying. I will try to cover 4 chapters in the first, guys, because apparently a lot of it's recapping at the start. But I will try to get back to you about something that... Because, like I say, the music is great in Harry Potter movies, but that's not really a comparison. Something that is better in the movies. I'm tempted to say McGonagall. But that's just because it's Maggie Smith, though. I can't say just because of an actor. I can't say Snape is better because he's played by Alan Rickman, because that's ridiculous. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on that. Thank you very much for your awesome comments here. I'll now close this down. But look out for the future ones, guys. Like I say, you can pledge as little as you want and get your comment read out. Love those questions, by the way. The questions are awesome. Greatly appreciated. We are now a book down, guys. I will desperately try and get to these faster as they go along, because I know that the books do get a lot more chunky as they go. But until then, Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm a Veggie Gamer, and I'll see you next time.